Ready? Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting of the Juneau Utility Commission to order. Roll has been taken. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Ross, second by Bart to approve the agenda. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes of the previous meetings. RBP.
Make a motion to approve. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Bart, second by Doug to approve the minutes of the previous meetings. Any discussions or comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public appearances. Sherry,
Awesome. Do you care if I sit here?
all's fair in the game of chairs.
Pass it down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Alrighty. Thanks for having me. As most of you know, I'm Sherry Scott with MSA. Here to talk about change order 8 for the wastewater treatment facility. Getting really close to being done, right? Couple items here, I have them all itemized out on this sheet. First item that will come up is, there was some work in the administration building. When they did this work back, gosh, must have been end of last year, probably. There was some additional conduit embedded in the grout topping on the roof. And so part of the work on the roof was to remove the grout topping. And so they found some conduit buried in that grout topping. And so it took them some additional time and care to remove the grout topping so they didn't damage some existing conduit to some HVAC units on the roof. That cost to do that work was $5,288. That was, we negotiated a reduction in the cost. The original change order came in $10,000 and some change. And so we used that subcontractor caused a lot of problems during the project, and we used that to the benefit to negotiate, to the benefit of the city of Juneau to negotiate a reduction in the change order cost. So the work's already been completed at the site. Are there any questions on that one? Need it explained differently?
I'm confused what you're telling us. What was, it was embedded? What-
Yeah, so there's a grout topping on top of that precast plank slab roof
Yep,
to slope it to the drains.
okay.
And so there was some electrical conduit in that grout topping
From the original install?
from the original
Oh,
install.
I thought you were talking about, okay.
Yeah, no, so it was
You said late last year or something.
yeah, they did the work late last year, and we
Okay.
finally came to conclusion with this change order after several months of negotiating with them, with the contractor, to get them to cut the cost down to $5,288. It took extra time to work around that conduit, and so they call it an unforeseen condition.
They had the conduit buried in the grout?
When the original project,
Huh.
when that was originally installed, it was.
I've never seen that before. First time for everything.
Okay, move on.
Mhm.
Okay. There are 3 influent plug valves and 4 influent check valves to be rebuilt. These weren't part of the originally scoped project, but Alex wanted to use the contingency on the loan to get this work done. So this is, for a cost of $22,677. This work has not been completed, but there's contingency remaining to do it on the loan. Any questions, thoughts?
Good.
Okay, moving on. This is for a credit for eliminating the gantry crane hoist and and then provide crane service at the oxidation ditch. So the oxidation ditch, has aerators. I wish I had a picture now. This is gonna look real silly as I describe this with my arms. They run the width of the ditch, and they're on shafts, and they turn in the water. Maybe I have the directions wrong, and I'm not gonna get them right, going the right way with opposite arms. But the way this was meant to be was that there was a gantry crane to sit over the top of the aerators and remove them and pull them up to the top of the deck to work on them. However, the hand railing was installed, it was supposed to be installed on the base of the wall so that the wheel, the gantry crane, could sit on either side of the aerator. But the handrail was installed on top of the, I don't know what you call it, beam, I guess you could say. So there's not enough room for this wheel to sit next to the aerator and between the handrail. So we asked, so likely, in talking with Evoqua, they said they've never seen anyone actually use these gantry cranes to remove the aerators. And that they see most people hire a crane operator to come out and remove these long shafts and work on them. However, to get that out of the project, because it was scoped to be part of the bid, we're having the contractor remove the gantry cranes from the project, the hoist, and then provide one crane service activity in the next 15 years. But because the contractor wouldn't, say, be available or be on the hook for whenever that might be, would that be your 1, would that be your 15, we just asked them to provide a credit as part of this project. So that is a credit of $23,634. And then, because it's not the way we originally intended it to be, and we had an RPR person out there, MSA is offering to cut a $5,000 credit for this item as well. So that would be cash that would come to the city that you could use for the event that there is a crane service need. This $23,634 would be deducted off the loan of the project, or become available contingency for something else.
So this is something that has to be done at a later date?
Just for maintenance, maybe,
It's just
down the
any
road.
time a repair or maintenance would be needed in the future, because it was not built to the original intent of the design. The original intent of the design included the ability to roll a gantry crane along the catwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the contractor put the railings on top mounted instead of face mounted on the sides, so that took up the space for the gantries to physically be on top of the catwalk. So because it was incorrectly built, more or less, the gantries and the chain hoists that were included in the project are no longer worth anything to us, because we can't use them because it wasn't built correctly. So we have,
It's either that or you fight with getting a thing with the contractor and tell him to remove the hand railing, but the hand railing also has a lot of conduit on it.
so you could tell them to build it right so that we could use these gantries.
Right.
but all of the build-out conduit is mounted to the railings, so for them to fix it would be a pretty significant undertaking. So the workaround is that a lot of people, when servicing this equipment, they get a heavy crane in to just lift the assembly complete, separate from a gantry. So basically, they're offering to pay back a portion of what we paid already for the gantries, and then a separate cash credit to pay for crane services.
And what's the likelihood that you're gonna have to do this?
Basically, at the end of the lifespan of the bearings, it's a sure thing, so 10, 15 years minimum. But if something fails before then, you never know. And that's more or less a long-term service item, but
So we'll just be paying for crane service as needed rather
Right.
than having it available at any time.
correct.
And that's where Evoke was that they'd never actually really seen anyone use these gantry cranes for anything. So part of our comment was, well, why did you
Why was
offer
it
to
part
sell
of the
them?
specification?
Right, why did you offer to sell them to this project if
Nobody uses
no
them.
one uses them? They say they just generally bring out a crane and take it off the ditch and work on everything else to the side, because it's a long shaft. Hard to work on.
When being involved in this kind of business, the first thing that I have to ask is where's our inspection at the time this railing was installed improperly and conduit was fastened to it?
That's why, yeah, I that's why we're offering $5,000 towards the effort.
That sounds like a pittance compared to what, it sounds like it's a big foobar. And somebody wasn't catching it.
The inspector on site at the time is no longer an employee of MSA.
That's not the city's problem. Seems like I'm always the guy that has to play hardball here all the time. I don't like complaining about this stuff because I don't like when it happens to me, but it seems like we leave a lot of stuff slide that either was designed wrong, got caught later and added to costs. No, here, this just seems like to me like it's a real foobar that the city shouldn't be eating any of it. Either it should have been caught and reconstructed so that we could use this stuff. Now, I know we talked about these cranes when we took the tour out there, that we really didn't have any use for them damn things other than for that one purpose. So I'm okay with getting rid of the use of the crane, but it seems like we're kind of on the hook for something. And you know, the time you're going to have to use it, get in there to lift that thing, it'll be on a holiday and the coldest damn day of January or something like that. And whatever.
Yeah, how big a crane do you need to pick them?
I don't know, I mean, it's not too large, it's just something to be able to swing it
Just
off the,
spitballing with the mechanical contractor, they thought about a 90-ton crane.
But you know about
Okay,
mobilization
now
of
you're looking
equipment,
at-
boys.
You're looking at, what, $350 an hour for 90
I was
crane?
quoted 250, but yeah.
Plus mobilization.
Plus
Plus,
travel in and
yeah.
out, yeah.
Like I said, I don't like being.
All you're gonna get out, you're gonna get about 15, 20 hours, well, depending on when you use that crane, you're giving us about 15 hours of crane service. Is what that $5,000 is gonna cover.
So of the 23, 8 of it was stop paying also for crane service.
Out of the 23,000?
Correct, so it would be 8 plus 5.
And if this railing wasn't installed improperly, would the conduit been able to lay flat against the wall, or,
I mean, the
not
conduit-
having a visual, you know, I don't know what you're talking
The
about.
conduit would still be mounted on the railings, it'd just be more space on the catwalk for the gantries to,
I think we're just needing this, like,
Right.
a tiny bit of room,
yeah, more
unfortunately.
or less.
Mhm.
For a matter of a few inches. But it was more or less one of the upsetting points of it was when the vendor was on site to do inspections, it stuck out it stuck out to him first thing. He said, "Oh, those railings aren't supposed to be like that." I'm like, "What? Well, how are you gonna service this?" So that's just a frustrating thing as a customer, that it almost appeared as though the on-site inspector did not know the intent of the design when it was built. So,
Yeah, I apologize.
and some of those finer details, maybe within, when you buy this package through the vendor, should be stressed, you know, this is why this is this way, you know, and you can't get away with changing things along the way. I guess, for clarification, the specification required 2 of those full-size gantries. We only have 1 on site.
Right. The other one's sitting at Evoqua.
Right. So if you're offering a depreciated value on buyback, why can't we get full price, at least on the one that never left?
Right.
That's a little frustrating
I know, right.
and we don't have the breakdown here for you guys to see, but basically, cash value today for the parts that they're buying back is $26,000, and they're offering us 13 change. So, I get that you're not gonna get 100% restocking fee, but I want more than 13 and 13.8 for $26,000 in stock.
Well, if it's their inspector that screwed up, they ought to be eating the difference.
I talked to Greg about that. Originally, the changer came in at 18.
To me, that's,
So we got another 5 out of it.
it's their inspector that screwed up. Between them and Staub, there ought to be another 13 onto this then.
I mean, I get that when we bid this project 2+ years ago,
I think it was end
Let's
of-
either
Well, I
build
mean-
it, either build it according to the way it's supposed to be built, or you're gonna credit us whatever, so that we're not short anything for any, we shouldn't be paying for any, the city shouldn't be paying for a restocking fee that was MSA and Staub or whoever put this railing there screw up. That should be that should be on Staub and on MSA for eating that 13 grand.
And
why
one
do
of
we
them
have
never
2 of
even
them?
was
Restocking.
one of
delivered.
them never left, one of
Right,
them never
was
showed up.
delivered,
Whatever
so-
whatever
Should have
restocking
paid
fee
that.
is that should be an MSA and Staub.
The hard part is these items are not itemized in a bid document. We bought a ditch package from Evoqua, and it wasn't line itemed as, this is what you paid for it. So yes, you can go somewhere else and say, you know, this gantry is a $8,600 gantry, but you don't know what you physically paid for it with this project. So it's hard to have anything to stand on, because nothing was line item. And you don't know what they paid for it 3 years ago to say what they assigned a value to this. That's the hard part here. I mean, I think the middle ground is, I'd like to see better than 50% on parts, especially when one of them never left the yard. You know, and one of them never even made it here.
Yeah, we should.
That's a joke.
I-
That should be 100% credit.
I would think 75% of today's price is fair. That's just my personal opinion. Because, you know how much inflation there's been in the last 3 years,
Yeah.
but
Okay, so we're gonna remove this from the change order?
I don't think we're gonna come to a solution today.
No, I don't think so either. Okay. Alrighty, next item. The boiler heat pump control, so, the heat pump didn't have controls included in the design. That's our mistake, when we did the design, so we did finished the design now on our dime. To get those controls added to the project, it's $16,137.79. It requires a 2-week time extension on the project. to get that done. MSA also offered for the inconvenience of not having it complete during design, $5,000 for this item as well.
Where does that $5,000 come into play? Is it off of?
It would just be a check to
At the end?
Alex at the end, so
Okay.
you get cash.
Not to me.
Well, yeah, to the city of Juneau.
I think it's wrong.
Yeah. To go buy a boat. So that also includes some time to, for Train to do some time and materials labor. They had to make another,
A lot of this
IO.
cost was integration to the existing building management system, which was not included in the initial design.
right. Any questions?
We specified equipment, but we didn't include controls.
Yeah, they weren't shown on the plans, so the contractor wouldn't have known what was needed, unfortunately. So we got the controls done now. We finished up the design on our dime. That would have been done during design, or should have been done during design. And then we had the contractor get us a price for it.
Being that we're being billed like time and material type of stuff, how do we know that that cost of, that you're doing the redesign on your dime, how do we know that that's not being thrown in some of the time and materials?
We're doing it under our, separately. There would be no hours for Carolyn.
Okay.
Under the lump sum to work on that, or
Okay.
under the time and materials tasks.
Okay. Cause yeah, we don't really have
Just
any, I
The
guess.
frustrating part is you never see that breakdown. It's just.
Yeah, we don't have it's not broken down. So
And-
lump,
And that's just a frustration that Lori and I have both had throughout this entire project, is that we receive invoices for time and materials, period.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not 132 hours of engineer services and 72 hours of this and that.
Well, and you.
There's zero breakdown, it's
Right.
So
just
last-
X dollars. So
so maybe going forward, you wanna do all time and materials contracts, is that what you're?
it's not just,
Not
it's,
necessarily,
no,
it's just we want some kind of a breakdown. I mean, you go to an accountant and you go to the attorney and they'll say, well, you know, I did an email for this and I did and I don't expect that detail of a thing, but like Alex says, it's like we could have 130 hours for engineering and 50 hours for administration and, you know, that type of thing. We have no idea what we're paying. So like I say, how do we know that, you know, Caroline's or whoever's time for redesigning this isn't thrown in there somehow? I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously we need to trust that that's what you're saying
We'll
is
level with
happening,
that.
but it's just frustrating because
It's just,
any place,
for an
any.
accountant to write a blank check is foolish.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to do time and materials then. I'm just trying to think how you would know unless you share, cause lump sums are just billed by percent completes, unfortunately.
And then when you get the lump sum and then you get the time and material and it's almost the same, if not more than the lump sum, well, what did the lump sum
What
cover
did-
and
what
then
did
what's
lump
in,
sum buy?
what's in the time and material that we don't know what that was made of. So that's been very frustrating.
Cause ultimately you'd bill out to 100% lump sum regardless of where you are on the project.
Right.
And lump sum would be that you take care of the whole project, but then there's all the time and material that you're adding on top of that.
The RPR and
That,
questions.
what's
Um,
the
Yeah,
time, what's
if
the
you
lump
came
sum
in at
coming
bid
in?
and there was no extra charges, there wouldn't be any questions. It's all
Right.
the extra charges is where the questions are coming from.
Right.
Yeah, you don't do a detailed breakdown of your extra
Yeah.
charges, you know, you're just going along.
So on the bottom of those invoices, are they including hours? Or the cover
Yeah.
page, you need more
Well,
summary?
and we didn't get that all along.
Right, but
We
since
just
you
got that the last
asked,
few
we
months.
added it.
Out of
Okay.
2 years. Sorry, but
Yeah.
so I guess, you know, at the end of the project now, it's kind of a moot point, cause pretty much over anyway.
We'll keep providing that breakdown on the bottom?
Yep,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Okay. So do you want on the time and materials, the listing of all the staff that worked on the project?
If it just wants to be by classification of engineers or whatever, I
Okay.
think that would suffice.
Something,
Is something.
categories of work even. It has to be somewhere in your system if
I mean,
you're
you
billing
gotta,
based on.
you've gotta know what to be billing, so you know that, you know, Joe did 10 hours and so-and-so did 50 hours and,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there's gotta be
We
some
see-
kind of breakdown, because
Mhm.
otherwise how would you know what to bill by time and materials?
Yeah, we have that shows up.
Right.
We can get that easy.
So just do a sum of that,
Okay,
that would be fine.
okay. Okay. Alright, any questions on the boiler heat pump controls?
Right, move on.
Hearing none, okay. There were additional engineering services required along the way that can be contractor reimbursed to the owner. Those amounted to $9,102.50, so that's a credit back to the city.
That would have been like the, additional.
The things that I was itemizing separately.
Yeah, with
Yep.
the, what were those, the.
If they had extra submittals or
Submittals,
required.
that's what I was looking for.
There were a few things they asked us to evaluate, cause they wanted to change where the rebar was in the slab, so they said, we'll pay you for that, and
Yeah.
there was maybe some extra trips we made that they weren't ready for startup, that we showed up, they didn't cancel us in advance. That we don't think it's fair, the owner pays for. There was some issues with the generator slab, that we spent some time coordinating on.
Yeah, I remember I had a note on my desk about the submittals, that they kept going for more, and we shouldn't have to pay for that, because that's part
Yeah,
of this.
we were itemizing all
Right.
those separately because we didn't think
Yeah.
that was fair, and it was written in the contract that any submittal review more than 2, the contractor would reimburse the owner for our time to get them reviewed.
Yeah.
Any questions? Alright, there were, on change order 7, as part of change order 7, there were HVAC zone valves to be replaced in the lab and break room admin area of structure of the administration building. When the contractor came out to do the work, they discovered that there's insulation that looked like it had asbestos in it. Turns out it was in the mastic of the insulation. In order to do the work, they're saying they need to remove or abate the asbestos and then re-insulate. And they did have it sampled over the last few weeks. So they're saying the cost to abate and re-insulate that area is $10,542. I did talk to the contractor, and they said that the valves have not arrived. We wanted to cancel it, likely we could, but we'd pay a restocking fee.
To the tune of.
They haven't answered that yet.
And so the long and the short of it is that basically that additional work was roughly $20,000 when we approved it the first time.
Yeah, I think it was right on there. Yeah, almost 20,600 about.
So then you're adding another 10 grand on top of it for a small amount of asbestos remediation. I don't, for something that was, I don't think that overall it's worth that kind of dollar figure right at this time. personally. Just because I think that we could probably find a contract and do it within budgets ourselves for a more reasonable cost. That's just thoughts. If nothing else, we can attach it to the next wastewater treatment plant upgrade 3 years from now and get fair bid pricing and not change order pricing. And heaven forbid, get an HVAC installer that is of slightly higher quality. So, and especially with the way that they're integrating the new controls for the boiler heat pumps, so the boiler will work differently. I would like to see how that performs for a winter first. Because more or less, the coils within the air handler will move to be the primary heat source with the new controls. So then, what they call a zone valve for reheat coils becomes secondary to your for your heat source. So the replacement of these valves with changing how this is controlled might be less important in the future because of this other item, the way that we're controlling heating in the building.
Yeah,
Might
hopefully
have
that
another-
covers it.
You might also have another contractor that'll walk in there and look at the so-called asbestos lace that might be in that installation.
Right.
And say, that's nothing.
Well,
Well, either way, you gotta, according to state, you gotta fill out asbestos permit forms, I think that's a bulk of some of the costs.
yeah, and we have the results sheets, it's the mastic of, the majority of it's not, it's just during the bends that had the painted on mastic that had 5% of something,
Crystallite,
yeah.
yeah.
So, now we know that, we probably have to disclose it, but, I mean, in the past, we've had contractors work on this system without mentioning it. That's not the right way to do things, but I'd like to see how the system performs with the new control scheme before spending $30,000 on 5 valves. So,
Okay.
if we have the ability to take back the addition of that in change order 7 and just move on, that would be my personal recommendation. And some of these valves did still work, so it's not like we're completely out of anything, it's just, it wasn't, for lack of a better term, a maintenance item that these are getting old and not working 100%. So,
So when I get the restocking fee from them, I'll give that
That
to
would
you
be-
and then you'll decide.
right, we can make a final decision at that time.
So I'll remove this from change order for now.
And it's on change order 7, you said that other.
The valves is on 7, yeah.
Um, Okay. Move on. The next is to close out the project, there's allowances that were in the contract to include. So one was the electric service allowance, and so we didn't need it on this project, so it's a credit of $50,000 back to the city. And then there's a structural concrete repair allowance, we did use a little bit during construction to repair a tank. The remaining is $6,141 that comes back to the city.
And I wish Nick was here, because I don't know if it was mentioned to him along the way, because we replaced that transformer for, I think it was like $70,000 or $80,000. I don't know within his budgets or our budgets, if it would have been worthwhile to utilize the credit within the loans to pay for that transformer instead of putting it on the electric department's budgets. I don't know.
Didn't Stan end up paying for some of that?
Well, ultimately, the utility paid in the first
Oh, for the
place to put it
original.
in.
Yes, you're right.
It was just that it had to be repaired along the way. I guess he has.
I don't know, that kinda gets messy, because then who owns it? I mean, does the
Right.
sewer department own it, or does the electric department
No.
own it?
Electric department just obligated to give so many amps worth of service, up to like 400 amps. That's embedded credit that you get, and then generally the customer pays over and beyond, but it's always the ownership of the utility.
And so sometimes these allowances are used because you had to, bore an electric service line from some pole or some access somewhere else, and it costs, they have to hire someone to come in, or that utility bills you directly. This is a lot different because you have the electric utility here.
A lot of times you deal with a power company, you get a premature retirement credit on the transformer, but I'm sure this transformer, if that's the original one that we put in when the plant was built in '83, I'm sure that's been retired already, depreciated to the max and whatever, and so now we're starting fresh with a base bid, and then you pay for so many amp service over above the 400 amp base or whatever, so. So I'm sure this was just a spitball figure,
Right.
like you said, as far as getting underground wire, upgraded wire, and do we move the location of this too?
It was
Yes.
trenched underground and it is moved, yeah.
So that
But
was
they did
just,
the work.
yep.
A lot of times utility bill, or the electric
Yeah.
utility bill municipality, correctly.
Nick never mentioned it as something along the way. We'll just take it as a victory for the sewer utility.
I mean, if I need to leave it off while you sort it out, we can do that.
Well, is that something we can just do internally between paying from department to department?
Well,
Why not?
it-
Direct purchase sort of.
It's part of
use
the
it for
cost,
that.
their base cost.
Do it part of,
And it's basically just if we wanna include that within our loan or not. That's the only change.
you're taking off this paperwork to do it between you guys later, you can do it.
Right.
As long as we have the receipt, we would send it to the DNR on the draw request.
Okay.
Alright, so we need to revise this one. So, I think there's benefit moving ahead, we want those valves rebuilt soon, because they have to
Yeah,
get those
they're
pieces
gonna wanna
and
get that
parts
done.
and, controls done.
But more or less, whatever we sort out here is the last of actual physical work being completed,
Correct.
so.
Calculator up, 'cause I'm not gonna do this in my head. So.
I don't know if you wanna approve the removal of that zone valve pending less than a 50% restocking fee, or I don't know if there's a way to word that, just keep it moving. I don't wanna take it off this sheet and then have to come back a month from now and
Because there's a
the
restocking fee.
restocking
of
fee
something.
was 9%. Can we approve to remove that now? I-
So we're keeping the first item
Yep.
as is, keeping the second item with the valve rebuild,
Mhm.
the crane service with the gantry crane and stuff, that may be different because we should be getting more of a credit.
To be determined
to be
on that,
determined if
to be
we-
determined on the third one.
Taking it off for now. To get change order rate moved forward. Boiler heat pump controls. 16137. Additional engineering, Friday to 9/102. Removing asbestos abatement, unless we,
Is that a to
I
be,
guess it's-
is that a to be
I guess it's
determined?
gotta be removed.
Are we
for
doing
now,
it, or
right?
we, is
This,
It's gotta
from
removed from this
as of right
or-
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it gets removed.
that a to be determined, or is that a, are we doing it, or?
It's that pending the, what we hear back on.
Okay, so that's a
restocking
to, so that
fee,
one's a to be determined.
Basically, yeah.
But we're,
But I don't know
we're
what-
removing it from here for now, so we can
Correct.
move on with the change
Yes.
order.
I don't know what level of restocking fee would make us change our minds on not doing that work. Cause I don't think the valves were, out of $20,000, the valves were probably only
I didn't bring that.
$7,000 worth of parts, so do you
Buy the parts,
Mostly
Just
mostly
say-
labor.
eat the parts and do the, and
Yeah.
change the valves
You
later.
could drop the parts off.
Where's the window of time that you're allowed to cancel the order and not pay a restocking charge?
It was 2 months ago now,
But they're not here yet.
right?
We're in West Bend.
They're in West,
He said
they're
they're
in
saying
West
they,
Bend?
yeah, I don't know, they said they haven't arrived yet.
They
They're
haven't even
citing-
arrived at the shop,
they're
so,
they're citing tariff issues right now.
Oh.
Ugh.
Can we try to cancel the order?
If,
The sooner the better, I would think, in that circumstance.
I mean, they said we could try,
Yeah.
what I need to find out is the restocking fee, I think, right? Because there's a chance that they might hit.
Is there
I don't know
a
why
way
you'd be
that-
paying a restocking fee if they're not even
If
in the
they're not
States
here
here
yet,
yet or
yeah.
whatever. And
Cause it already took a ride on a boat. Is there a way to say
Must've been a slow boat.
if the restocking
From
fee
China.
is greater than 50%, we'll take the parts and put them on the shelf?
Greater than 50% of the cost of the
Of the-
material.
Correct. Cause eventually somebody will install them, I hate to pay for them and then pay to send them back. I don't know if there's a way to word that.
Are we sure they're the right ones?
Well, it's not a certainty, but.
do we just go ahead with the, approving the asbestos abatement for right now, and then if something changes, we can,
You're at over 30 grand for replacing 5 motorized valves.
I'm just
Is it
saying, we
6?
approve the asbestos abatement right now, and then if we decide not to do it because we decide to return the valves, then we can,
Just not
Then we-
proceed with that.
and we
person
can just
change
not
order.
take that out of, we're probably, sounds like we're gonna end up with another change order anyway.
So
Put that in,
approve it.
take the 10,000 or take the 10,542 out of the next change order if we decide not to do it.
Approve it today pending knowledge of restocking fees.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if it's,
if we decide not, if we decide not to buy the parts, then this, would
Right.
not, then we would not pay the 10,000.
problem is the contractor's trying to get out of Dodge, and that's a lot
Well,
of
would we be
paperwork.
better off just to get the asbestos removed anyway?
So I don't think it's even necessary.
I'm just asking, I'm
No,
not,
yeah,
I'm not
no,
saying,
I-
I mean, it's one of those things where,
I mean,
it sounds like we just need to take the $10,000 out for right now, and if we have to do it, then we have another meeting and have another change order.
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
gonna
where
be
we're at with
nice.
that $10,000.
I-
Should just do it.
Sounds like the consensus, right?
Yeah, take the 10,000 out
Take
for
the
right now,
10,000,
and if we need to do another
542
change
out.
order, we'll do another change order.
right.
back up too, to make sure I don't do this one.
Now, Lori, is electric utility actually billed for the service out there? Have you generated an invoice for
To
the
the-
service over and beyond the base figure?
I believe we did. It was a while ago, so.
Would have been a job from
Okay.
last year.
Yeah, it was last year sometime.
I'm just kinda curious how we come up with that round $50,000.
Well, that wasn't engineered.
That was just
That was
an
their-
allowance.
That was theirs.
But there had been some costs from the electric utility to the
Yeah.
contractor or for this project.
Yeah, we did bill them for the transformer stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking, how do we wind up with that nice round 50,000? This is almost like a number you had in there and you didn't use any of it. That's what I'm
That
saying.
was kinda what she implied.
That's what
it
she
sounded
said.
like, yeah.
That,
That's what
but
she implied.
I'm finding it hard to believe that's the way it probably went. I'm thinking that there was a cost for over and beyond the
So
base,
that-
base fee or base charges.
That 50,000 would have gone towards,
Directly
to
electric
paying
utility.
electric for the transformer work.
Which at a minimum, they did.
Well, and
retrench
Nick
the
may have given
service.
them did Nick give him a bid price for what he had to do?
I don't think so.
As I say, there was probably a base figure in there for electric extension and upsizing transformer. So that's why I can't understand how we wound up with that round $50,000 credit. There had to
I'm
been.
certain there was no money taken out of that.
Right, okay.
That was an original number.
But somewheres the electric utility had
Is
a
it-
bill for their services over and beyond the base.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
right.
I just,
It was probably
And
a
that $50,000
$11,000 figure or something like that. I'm just shooting
well,
from the hip. I don't even know.
I remembered that transformer being $70,000 or $80,000, but I don't know if
Yeah.
that belongs here or not.
But no, none of our customers, to answer your comment earlier there, none of our customers own the transformers. Utilities owns all the transformers. We might call it the wastewater treatment plant's transformer, but that's only because it's just servicing them. But the electric utility would continue to own the transformers.
So anyone else do the math?
I mean, ultimately.
So what is your number?
I come up with a negative $21,140.71.
That matches my phone.
All right. Two did it.
After that last one meeting where we had some
No,
issues
yeah.
with some math,
Adding stuff, taking
I
it out.
added it. I'm like, well, we'll throw it out. Since I'm here and it's easy enough to check. We have the same. Those have the same number.
Super. So it'd be a credit of $21,140.71.
How much was it,
$21,140.71. I'm gonna check one more time just 'cause.
Okay.
So then it's gonna revise all these numbers down here, and I'm not about to attempt to fix those right here, right now without a spreadsheet.
Just approve it.
Yes.
So we need to take a vote on that, or?
Well, it doesn't, it says update and discuss change order number 8, doesn't say we can vote on it.
Oh.
No, under Alex's. it
Under
does.
Under
Alex's.
Alex's it does.
You'd like to amend.
We want to amend the agenda so we can vote on it now.
Too late.
A
Or do
little
we
late
just,
to know.
or we just work our way through it
Yep.
and do it, vote on it when we vote on it? I mean, we pretty much hashed everything out, so.
What was the number?
21,140.
She doesn't have to stay here.
To travel before the deer get out.
And they were out during the day-to-day, so.
They sure were.
Everywhere. Alright, any
Uh,
questions?
Nope.
Talk to you tomorrow.
You'll have the final word for you.
Sounds good, thank you, appreciate your guys' time.
Okay. We'll move into monthly business. Approve the vouchers and the checks.
See you guys,
Mm-hmm.
bye-bye.
Motion by Ross to approve the vouchers and the checks. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Bart. Is there any discussion, any questions? Just for your information, I totaled up what we spent on the tornado recovery for the electrical.
The date.
To date, I have $170,585.62 so far. This does not include the bushings for the transformer, or we're getting some of the other stuff in yet, so.
Might look like our insurance is gonna be pretty good as far as covering that stuff from what Megan told me.
Yeah.
She says it sounds like we're pretty well insured, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I
That's
haven't heard
good.
any updates from her.
That would be really wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a motion, who seconded it again?
Bart.
We have a motion and a second to approve the vouchers and the check. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Prior month income statements. Anybody have any questions or concerns on that? If not, we can move on to council acts affecting the utility. Resolution 24, 2025. Approve compliance maintenance annual report. We approved last month. Resolution 25, 2025, approved to amend personnel policy handbook part-time 201 hours of work. Consumption and loss. I'm sure they. So the treatment stuff has gone up a little bit in a few months. We've had a little rain, tornado. Anybody have any questions? Anything on that? And review of Anybody have any questions on the consumption and loss? If not, we will move on to review the totals of delinquent customers.
I think for disconnects, we had 8 last month, and I think 2 are off, but they're vacant, I believe.
Anybody have any comments about that, delinquent accounts? If not, we will move on to utility accountant. Laurie?
Okay. Before I start the line items, I just wanted to give an update that, we received a draft financial statement from Baker Tilly for year end for 2024. So that, should all be, done now, finally, in July. I did send out thank you letters to the mutual aid, municipalities for helping us with the tornado. And we had sent out, a time of day brochure that, to customers that would benefit from going on to the time of day use for electric. And WPPI types up a letter that shows, if you stay on the regular rates for electric, that it would be such and such a dollars, and if you move to the time of day, which would be nights and weekends, that you do use most of your electric, that you would be saving X amount of dollars per year. And we've had a really good response on that this time. I think there's at least a half a dozen that I know of that Pam told me about. Recently, we sent out about over 300 letters. And we've had to have at least a half a dozen, just maybe this last week. But anyway, the response has been good. We did a cutoff for if they would save, I believe it was $50 or more per year, that we sent those people a letter. And some of them, they could be saving like $300 or $400 a year, so, it's a nice benefit that WPPI offers to point out, say, hey, with a time of day usage, and you can save some money, so, but yeah, customers have been pleased with that. And we've, I think I mentioned in the last meeting that we've been kind of tracking with changing our hours to 8 to 4 and not doing the half-day Friday. Last Friday, the Friday before last, because it was the holiday, so it was the last day of the month for June. We ended up with 14 customers in on Friday, and 11 of them were after 11 o'clock. So there would have been 11 customers that we would not have been able to take care of if we would have had the regular summer hours. So Pam and I are very happy with our hours of getting in here at 8. And it's benefiting the customers and itself too, so that was a good decision we made on that, I believe. So, item number 1, I have review, discuss, and take possible action on bulk water meter fees. The reason that I'm bringing this up is we have some farmers that come in, and they would bring their tank of 100 gallons, there's, whatever,
Anybody.
just,
Any commercial customer of water
yeah,
that
yeah.
fills up at the well house here.
But we charge them a $50 meter fee, and then one of the farmers, it was like, we're gonna charge them $12 for water, but we're charging them $50 to access that water. And I just felt like that was just kind of exorbitant, so, Alex and I talked about it a little bit, and so we thought we'd bring it up to see if we want to change how we do that, billing for the bulk water. Because it's a flat $50 no matter how much water you get.
To open the
To
account
open
for
the
the month.
Right, and it's per month.
So per month, so if somebody wants to take 300,000 gallons, they get the $50 fee, and then they pay per thousand. If they wanna take 2,000 gallons, they pay $50 per thousand. So,
So it just seems,
more or less, from a utility aspect, from water side, I'd love to sell as much water as I can. There's no downside to us selling more water. So long as Lori's covering everything she has to do on her end for billing.
right,
You're
and we
going to
do,
it,
we do
so.
charge a administration fee, a percentage, so that kind of covers, and all I'm basically doing is going into a spreadsheet and changing the address and the numbers. It takes me 5 minutes to type an invoice, so,
I do think that maybe that is a little bit prohibitive, that $50, cause it seems like, say if Brinkman comes to take water, you know, they'll take their first load to fill somebody's pool, and then in that given month, they must know, cause usually they'll come a couple times for that month, and then they'll be gone for another
Yeah.
4 to 6 months before they come back, so.
right,
I would assume that that's part of their deterrent from coming here to buy water.
so I,
Do other, what other, do other municipalities that sell water have a $50 fee, or what do other
I didn't get a chance
municipalities
to, yeah, I didn't get a
charge
chance to
for
find out.
doing something like that? I think that would be something worth asking
I know we
around.
called Mayville at one time, a long time ago.
Was theirs 35?
It was close to what ours was.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know if it was 50, but it wasn't.
I think I remember somebody's paying 35, maybe it was Waupun.
I guess, does the customer whine about paying the $50?
It's not our
Well-
customers that ultimately want it, it's people who
Well,
come
there
to
are
buy
some,
bulk
yeah,
water.
there are some of our customer, well, there, yeah, cause there's the Lepo farm
Okay, yeah.
that they just came, and I actually held off on his invoice because I was bringing it up in tonight's meeting. We're gonna charge him like $8 for water, and we're gonna charge him a $50 fee.
$58.
So, it just doesn't, I guess that just doesn't seem right to
I
me.
guess I would find out from other municipalities, maybe take a, call some other municipalities and see what they're charging. I mean, they're obviously, we picked that fee for a reason at some point.
Right.
I'm not sure when that was done, I have no idea.
How much water do they get for $8?
It's
$4.25
yeah,
per thousand.
It's more or less the same rate our customers are paying,
Mhm.
just they're paying for the service charge monthly.
We're paying for the convenience.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the same time, you get clerical involved with it, $50 doesn't go any far. Suppose you don't pay his bill.
Right.
You gotta send up following up with statements and
Right.
stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I don't think in this day and age a $50 charge is really if we gotta generate an invoice and any amount of time that you or Pam have to spend on it,
Mhm.
that's all gotta come out in the wash, you know, so
Right.
I
Well, we
don't
do-
think that's exorbitant.
Okay.
I agree, you know,
I-
it's
what-
kinda looks lopsided if you're only taking 6,000 gallons versus 60,000 or 600,000, but I
Well-
mean, it's still, the convenience factor, I
Would,
guess, you know.
would 25 still cover your bases?
That's pretty minute, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, I look at it as,
You look at the
somewhere
compo-
along the way, we made $50 for a reason, and I'm not, I mean,
Yeah.
and
Right.
if that, we made it $50 for a
I
reason.
don't think it's changed since I've been on.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the reality is with inflation and everything, they're probably getting a deal now.
Yeah.
I mean, at $50, they're probably getting a deal, to me.
I mean, at the city level, we're constantly trying to update that because of the fact that, like I said, it's just the paper trail that goes along with it. And you gotta look at the composite rate, you know, Lori's time, Lori's benefits, everything that rolls into that, you know, that's where $50 an hour doesn't cover much anymore. Not that you're spending an hour on that, but like I said, if they wouldn't happen to pay their bill, then you gotta do a follow-up invoice and.
Well, and it could be, you know, there's, like, part of the admin fee too is Pam has to go and turn the water on sometimes if you guys haven't
Right.
been here yet. and-
Physically turn them on.
Right, turn
There
the
you go.
meter
Yeah,
on.
so I really don't have I think at $50, I think we're okay.
Okay, I just felt that you should revisit it just,
Well, it's,
and, you know, and it's one of those certain instances where, you know, if there was one farmer last year that came and he got, you know, buckets type of thing, and it's just like,
Oh,
it's not
gee.
worth my time, you know, just
Well, there's-
take that.
there's a certain
It was
level.
a small little tank thing,
Cow
you know,
tank.
rather, you know, it was
Cow
like
tank.
$50,
Well,
50
some
gallons
come
or
and-
something.
And fill their sprayers up.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
so,
Like the street department came to fill up their weed sprayer, it was 1,400 gallons, and like, do we really generate an invoice and charge the city $50 for $5 worth of water?
I would think there should be a running
Just write it off.
total for the, running total for the year, you know, for multiple visits or something like that.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have to necessarily be billed on a monthly basis.
well, I think that it actually might have been billed per day, or, you know, like, they came back multiple times a day or something, but I changed it to, I just do it once a month when I do the monthly billing stuff. Just seems fair. So, okay, well, we'll just leave it the way it is.
Okay,
Review, discuss and possibly approve community contributions. In your packet on the last page is the letter from the police department for supporting them with their National Night Out, their Read with the Cop, the bicycle safety, and the think program that they do with fifth grade class. We did have a request from WPPI. Normally we kind of go through the community contributions, and then at the end of the year, we decide, oh, we didn't spend enough money, so then we do more. They asked if we would do our contributions throughout the year, and I can submit them as we go, rather than I just submit one big bill at the end and say, oh, this is what we spent, and reimburse us at the end of the year. So I don't know if you wanna, approve something for the police department, and I didn't look to see how much, if we've done anything last year for them, last year.
I don't think we did, I think
I think that we passed on that last time,
we did, shop with comps at the end of the year.
yeah.
We donated some money for the crosswalks.
Yep, we
Yeah.
did crosswalks
Did
last
some
year.
money for the crosswalks, so that's where anything that like that would've went, instead of going to the police department, it went for like the crosswalks. Yeah, I think we did some money for the ball diamond too, to take the lights down.
That went to,
Yeah, we donated our time for that. So I don't know if we wanna just maybe do like $100 to them or something.
you know,
just
we
to
used
have
to
a
do
gesture.
something for the bicycle safety when they did that, but that was a while ago.
And that's what's part of this, is the
I
bicycle
don't
safety.
remember.
$100 is adequate for that.
No?
I wouldn't renege on it totally, but, you know, unless there's other things you got that are more pressing.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any requests for anything up until now.
Now those cross, or those, that lighting for the crossing guards, I thought we received a grant. I thought the police department received a grant. All we did was provide the hookup.
We provided the
Now,
labor for hooking
Do
them
we,
up.
do we run an invoice for that?
Yeah, we submitted that to WPPI.
Okay,
Those
so
under-
that was part of
part
the
of
amount for this year?
That was last year.
That was last year, okay.
Yeah, we haven't done anything except scholarships for this year so far.
Okay. Well, usually it's this home stretch that we
Yeah.
make our decisions on, but they'd rather be billed throughout the year.
Yeah, yeah.
God.
Because otherwise, if they have 50 municipalities saying, oh yeah, we've got
Yeah.
$5,000 worth of
Yeah, it dings them hard
reimbursables.
at the end of the year, but what difference does it make, you know, for
Right, they
them?
should have it in their budget that they are
Yeah,
reversing
I mean,
it.
they've
Yeah.
got it all covered, I mean,
Yeah.
they got a dollar amount for every municipality, so, you
Right,
know,
right,
they know what's coming at them, so.
yeah.
They should do like 250 for that, that's what? Or 200 would be $50 for each one of their things, the National Night Out Read with a Cop, bicycle safety and that pink thing. That would, you know, I mean,
Yes, we have, at least, I believe we have $2,000 for contributions that we can spend.
that's
Part of-
2,000 from us and 2,000 from WPPI.
No.
No,
Or is
that
it
would be
1,000 apiece?
each.
You chew that up
1,500,
already.
I believe we have 3,000. So if we do $200, it's really not affecting much of anything as far as the total goes. We really do that.
Have any more Christmas lights or anything like that? We need to-
The whole East Oak Street, there's still the old ones, yeah. They're putting some numbers together for that, so you probably see that coming. Yeah, Oak Street's still got old ones, they don't have the LED ones. But we're waiting for the new poles to make sure that we got the proper mounts for what we're gonna do there, so.
So what is your pleasure? What if we give them $100 now and if we
And we
find
can
out we got
give
more
them
later
later.
on in the year, we can always give them more later.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to give them $100 now. And should we decide we have something later, we can always give them more. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. And then my last item, review, discuss, and take possible action on the NUW wage survey results. That's the second last page in your packets. We did get the survey back for the 2024 wage data. And, we did the same comparison as previous years with Columbus, Hartford, Bucysford, Waterloo, and Waupun. And took the average mean wage of those, and then the next column is the 2025 actual wages, not 2024. And as you can see, we are still fairly far behind on most of them. So, talking with the staff, we would like to just, with that action item, we would like to request a personnel meeting to go over the wage data, to see about any wage adjustments that could be possible to get us, to keep us competitive with the other communities.
Budget time, that we're, I mean, this would be, so I think for me, if we're gonna do a wage, any kind of wage increase, it's gonna be the end of, for me, it's the end of the year. We're just gonna do this craziness of doing one now and one later is, I think is crazy. I think we need to get this down to once a year.
Well, problem with that is when we do the wage increases, first of all, what we've been doing at the end of the year is just the cost of living.
I understand that, and I'm not
Okay.
happy about that.
Okay, well.
But I'm saying, if we're gonna do,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned,
Mark, can I
the thing
finish?
that we're doing, we do it now and we do it later, I have a problem with.
Okay, can I finish my statement? though?
Yes.
Please, thank you. The issue that I have with that is, this is comparing 2025 wages with what everybody's paid last year. You do it at the end of the year, it starts in 2026, so we're always gonna be at least a year behind, a year and a half behind, unless there's some type of a major wage adjustment that is gonna be for comparing, cause right now we're comparing 2025 that we're actually getting paid to last year's wages, and some of us are $3 to $5 behind an hour. And then you're gonna go at the end of the year and say, okay, starting 2026, well then,
You're still 3 to 4%
2025
Well,
comes out, and we're always gonna be that year and a half behind. So, maybe it is beneficial to have one time where in the middle of the year, you make the wage adjustment, and then you can just do the cost of living to keep up with the communities on the first of the year. That is my suggestion. That seems to be the consensus of the employees that I've spoken with. So I don't know if that's worth a separate personnel meeting or what you guys want to do.
My opinion is we gotta get out of this cost of living argument.
Well, and
That
that's-
is not a scheme that's
that's-
ever gonna work
that-
out in the long
that-
run for us.
well, that's why,
It's-
that's where I'm at.
It's always fighting for 2% when it's never, 2% wasn't the number.
Right, and 2%
You
is
know,
not even
2%
close
still
to
putting us
being.
behind.
I understand it,
I'm,
the end of the year, technically, yeah, okay, the cost of living thing is really poor at best. We've all discussed that we don't care for that cost of living thing. But the only point of it is that we have to have something to go by, and I think that a separate meeting would be warranted to go over this and I mean, I realize the budget starts in September,
Mhm.
so we can, I mean, I don't wanna wait, I'd like to get it, some sort of thing going, so it, when we get putting numbers in for the budget, we know what we're talking about.
And I'm good with that.
good.
So,
Frankly, I was the one that pushed this.
And I don't have.
I just don't want us sitting on our hands and get to September and everyone's arguing over nothing. We gotta come up with a plan
I agree.
or something.
I agree.
Because we can't keep
But
fighting for
I
1%.
don't wanna say, I'm at the person that, I'm done voting twice a year for raises.
Right, and.
I'm done
and-
with that.
and I
Well,
Me
know,
that's
personally.
why-
we know
me-
going into this, that this is gonna be enacted January 1.
Yeah.
It's just, we can't
And-
wait till October to say,
No,
it's too late.
I agree with you, I agree with you.
We just needed to get these numbers in front of your face.
I agree.
To say, hey, my ceiling is $3 below the mean of last year's number.
Right,
I agree, I understand.
Then
So,
that's.
at a
I understand
minimum-
that, but I'm done with this twice a year
Right.
wage
So-
baloney.
And
I am very much against
what
that.
we will do is schedule another meeting, a personnel meeting, and go through this, seriously look at it, and we can come up with some numbers. Makes the budget process easier for you.
And that's what we're
Yes,
requesting,
that's
is
all
that
we're
there's a
And that's,
personnel
and
meeting
that
that
if the
actually
wages will
makes
take
sense.
effect the first of the year, not before. If we,
Yeah.
whatever we approve
Right. And-
would not take effect until the first of the year.
And the other point I was trying to make though is that if you do one adjustment that is fair, that brings us up to being competitive with the mean average wage.
I
you could-
understand, I
you could
understand
go
where,
to-
I
can I
understand where
finish
you're
this?
going. I
So
understand
then
that
I-
we need to be more, we're gonna have to be above these numbers, I understand that.
Okay, because then if you get us to where we're in the ballpark, we don't have to have the discussion all the time, plus then you can go to the cost of living and keep up with the communities.
doubt it.
Well,
I
if you
doubt
keep,
it.
if you.
I doubt it.
That's what the other communities are doing. And so if they
I
give a
doubt it.
3% or a 5% or whatever, and as long as you're keeping up with the fellow communities, surrounding communities, cost of living, once you make that one jump of that adjustment of the wage to get us in the ballpark of everybody's average, then it's not,
I know I'm against the
issue.
grain here. I would do away with cost of living completely and just say, every year, we're gonna take these numbers and we're gonna, even if I'm a year behind, I'm fine with that right now. That's better than being 5 years behind.
I agree.
So if I can take my ceiling and put it at least at the mean of last year's number, maybe I can keep an employee.
I agree,
But
I understand where you're coming
I
from.
can't, we can't hang out at 5 years behind. I can't be 11%
I understand.
low. So even if it becomes every October, we take our ceiling and just put it at the mean, at least you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, I agree.
And we gotta get rid of this cost of living number that people pull out of the hat. There's nothing to go on.
And we realize we're dealing with, different trades and everything else, so I mean, and I hate to say it, we gotta keep up with the Joneses, or we lose employees.
So the reason I brought it up is to request a personnel meeting that this actually gets looked at so that we can go ahead with September, October into the budget season to plan for January 1st, but that's all that I was bringing up, is to request a meeting for this purpose.
I agree totally. Separate meeting with, and come through with it, alrighty?
Okay.
So we have the information, we can do a little calculating on our own and see what the heck we can come up with.
Okay.
And when we get to the meeting, we can hopefully take care of it in short order. All right? Sound like a plan? All right. I'll get you a date.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I got.
I had a message from Nick. He's got a stomach bug. We are nearing completion of the transmission job. Should be completed in 2 weeks. Fair Street job will be completed by end of next week. Kind of short and sweet. Unusual for Nick. I can say that, he's not here to defend himself.
What's the second item that he said?
Fair Street.
Fair Street.
Fair Street, okay. Okay, thank you.
All righty. So, Alex,
Well, first item of business is clear up what Sherry had talked about. I don't know if there's anything further to sort with that.
yeah, we can approve the change order with the changes we made to it.
Yeah, for the $21,140.71 credit.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. And second by Ross. Is there any discussion?
I guess I still have a problem with that boiler heat pump controls. $16,000. It seems like MSA has a problem owning up to oversight on their behalf as far as engineering. I mean, how many people go into a project of this magnitude? They seem to always want to hang on extras anytime you ask for something extra, but I think their credits are awful minimum when it comes down to when it falls in their fault category. Who specifies as a new, or specs out a new heating system that doesn't include any controls with the thing? I mean, it just seems to me that they should be accepting more of the blame than they do on a lot of this stuff here. We called them on the carpet on some of the things up on our street project here just recently. Same thing, Lori, you asked for. They send out blanket invoices with just dollar amounts with no explanation. They might have a title on something, staking of East Oak Street and stuff like that. So then when you call them on the carpet, well, then they come out with a detailed breakdown of each item. Why can't they send that out first of all?
Right.
Well, then when we see the expense on something, you know, I'll just give you a prime example. One of the aldermen insisted that we put a couple floor drains in on that plaza up there. There's a couple 6-inch drops that got tied onto the storm drain. I bet you there's not $250 worth of materials there, and we're up to $10,000 between engineering services to both design it and to watch it being installed, which I understand, according to our street superintendent, nobody was even around watching them when they put it in and whatever, other than our street superintendent. So don't be afraid to call these people on the carpet. I mean, what was their contract for engineering, 2 million something for this project here?
Overall total was like, I wanna say it was one point, I thought it was 1.2 or something.
Yeah,
Well,
1.5.
I mean,
One was eight.
One was 800,000 and one was 500,000.
Yeah, so
And change.
1.3.
when I had a conversation with the big boss, Iowa, I think I'm gonna say, I said, the biggest problem we've got is we'd like an all-inclusive bid. I mean, we get billed for inspections on defects on the contractors and the things. All of a sudden, if somebody's gotta come over from MSA and, say, yeah, this has gotta be ripped out and redone and whatever, we get billed for that. You know, that's part of the scope of engineering and inspections, I feel. You know, when we ask for full-time inspection, we know we don't get full-time inspection. But I mean, here's the case where, like I said, I don't think the city should be billed when they haul me off the job someplace to meet with Joe and meet with one of MSA's personnel and whatever, and look at something that a contractor did poorly, and then we get a bill for their time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
mileage plus hourly, and they're charging 175 plus an hour.
If the contractor did the job poorly, the contractor should be the one getting the bill.
Yep, here you go. Like I said, no, that's for the assessments.
Mhm.
I never ever remember ever seeing a bill for assessment meetings when we meet with the public, you know, for giving them the bad news, this is your portion of the project, you know, whatever. We get billed for that, you know, and I look at that as being part of the scope of the engineering project and whatever. So, like I said, I hate to sit here and belittle her and pick on her about certain things, but there's a lot of things that that should fall in MSA's lap versus the city always getting billed for a lot of this stuff. And Alex, I know you've had reservations if you'd ever wanted to business of that scope again with them, but I mean.
Well, that's why I brought up with we have the lump sum and then we have the time and material.
Yeah.
The time and material basically is then what's the lump sum covering? If it's supposed to be covering the
That's-
inspections and
that's
all
where
that,
they
then
get
we're
you,
getting
that's where
charged
the
for
material.
inspections on the other. It's
Well, talking with other firms, there's others that work exclusively on a time and materials basis. And that way, at least you know what you're paying for and what you're getting. You don't have this lump sum fee that just is
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
into
you
a
get
cloud
a detailed,
that
you get a
counts for-
detailed bill.
I mean,
Right,
there's
at
a
least you
prime
know what you're
example
paying for.
tonight here. I mean, every one of these items, we don't really know, you know,
Right.
is there really
Well,
$16,000 worth of controls
She
for
she didn't give you the breakdown sheet, which I happen to come with printed.
Okay.
But basically, the long and the short of that item specifically is $5,500 for Train to do the integration with their system. $4 grand for Peeper to do the actual pipe and wire. And then the extras were markup and engineering.
But why was it overlooked right away?
Well, that specifically is one of, we had that in change order, was it 5 or one of those where
Yeah.
we paid, where it wasn't HVAC, well, that was actually ironically a different portion of HVAC controls that, because we had to integrate the makeup air units into our wastewater control system. So that was like $40,000 at that time.
Yeah, just,
So this is, if I remember right, the explanation at the time was they changed who was the lead designer for HVAC at the time. And more or less controls, it seems incomplete, was missed
yeah.
in any form of heating and cooling. So this just was something on the backside of it that is another thing that was missed in the original design, so.
With having dealt with Train at work, it's like, I'm not surprised the bill is what the bill is.
Well, but we wasted so much time and materials budget for engineers to try to figure out how this should work.
Yeah.
That should have, because I had to bring this point up for like 3 months in a row. These boiler pumps are not controlled correctly. This isn't working. I have to manually go to a breaker box and turn a heat pump on and off. Oh, it's 80 degrees in here, I should turn it off.
Yeah.
No, well, how is this supposed to be controlled? So then you send 5 different engineers in to look at it, and, well, we have a 3-year-old building automation system that nobody ever took the time to figure out how this should be controlled. Nobody ever showed up and looked at it.
And that should have been a ground zero of
Part of
design.
initial design,
When you're
correct.
doing the
And that
design
was-
work, that should have been, I mean, and then, let alone what you just said, turn a breaker off, look at the efficiency you lost
Right.
by cooking that up to
Right.
almost, you're sweating bullets, and then you're
Right.
going in there, so there's no control of the heat throughout the building there, your
So-
balls to the wall or none at all, you know, what it
So
boils down to,
it's
so.
basically, this number is to bring everything back up to what it should have been in the first place.
Right.
That being said, if it was included in the initial bid, you still were paying for it, but you're not getting prime rate doing it as a change order, but that is why MSA is writing me a $5,000 check. So, yeah, they're taking it from
But that's
16
peanuts compared to the miss.
16-1 down to whatever it was.
Because not only are they
11.
wasting time, they wasted a lot of time,
Oh,
and
Right.
she charged us the time and material to figure it out, which is
Well, and I hate
above and
to,
beyond these change order amounts.
I hate that we had to push this down the road, because every time she shows up at a meeting, it's $2,800. So it's,
Right there. That's
It's
what I'm
like,
saying.
well, how
You
many-
guys, you
that-
guys get your 40 bucks.
That is not right.
how many pennies did we wanna save by talking about this when every time she shows up, it's
Right.
that much, so
Yeah.
that's that item.
Yeah, you want their advice during the construction, but you can't hardly afford it because, oh, that's extra, that's
Yeah.
extra.
Well, and-
Every time they send
And then-
somebody out, it's extra, yeah.
Yeah,
whatever.
and then it's,
We-
my comment is like, well, what's in the lump sum then? What's that covering?
Right.
Because you charge for every little thing we do, or they do.
And that should have been laid out more directly, what our expectation is to be included within the lump sum.
Yeah.
Well, I
Maybe
guess
we
we
can
know,
review
we
that,
know if
but-
we ever do something like this again, we
Right.
get,
Well,
Well, and
we will be
This
doing.
table ain't gonna have to do it anymore.
I beg to differ
I
with
beg
you.
to
There's,
differ.
No,
we got
we have
we have
another,
another project
That will
that's
be
gotta
in
be
very short order.
yeah.
short
Yeah.
Oh,
order
that,
out there.
for that, yeah.
And that's,
That's
that's
all.
what, $2 million was the
Well,
estimate?
that's a far cry from 13 million.
Yeah, but the only trouble is that could have been included on this one. They knew about it, they did not include it
Well,
on
that's
this
what I say,
one.
there's so many things that
And-
they just don't take ownership of and.
And it's gonna, instead of $2 million, it'll be 2.5 or whatever. But you know the price has gone up. Heaven forbid that we gotta get it from overseas because the tariff is going up.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Restocking charges.
it's difficult on their stance, I can see, because every board is different for these time and materials budgets, because our stance was, they walked in and said, 500,000 should cover this project for time and materials. We got to the end of the project and we were short. But nobody, when they proposed $500,000, nobody in this room balked at it. Okay. But then you have cities like Mayville where, you know, I take a little bit of interest living there, where they proposed a $600,000 time and materials budget, and the mayor there said, we gotta bid these services out, and that's way too much, and I think they cut them down to like 4 on their $25 million project. They're gonna run out of time and materials budget in a year, and that's gonna be a 3-year project. So it's hard from an engineer's standpoint to walk in for that budget specifically and know how to play the room. You know, where I think we, on the other hand, at all costs, don't run out of that budget, because we don't wanna have these conversations at the end of this project. but that's just one of those things for that item specifically.
So,
Okay, so we've got a motion by Bart and second by Ross for the change order. Did you guys vote?
no, we didn't.
Okay,
We were in the discussion.
okay.
Are we? So, we have the motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Reluctantly. On that.
Okay.
All right, projects.
We had 42 fire hydrants painted this month.
Yeah, I noticed there was some that were.
I think more people noticed because they were brown for about 4 days.
Tell my neighbors' lawns are red.
Yeah, I noticed, cause that was what I noticed, was the
Yeah.
lawns were red, I'm like, oh, they,
Yeah.
Alex had some fire hydrants
Fair
painted.
amount of overspray on that
Yeah,
job.
Yes.
But they had a second guy there literally standing with like a mattress on the far side of it to try to catch it. Or a tarp on a frame, but they still somehow managed to paint a lot of grass.
They certainly did.
But I think overall they are looking pretty good. I did complete the first round of lead and copper sampling of 20 samples in June. We got one result back that was above the action level at 15 parts per billion, which is very odd because that customer hasn't had a lead lateral in 3 years. And it's just an oddity, but the DNR only regulates us on the 90% rule. So only out of every 10 samples you take, they only take 9. So they give you a little bit of leeway. So we got all 20 results back. Our next highest result was 3.3. And we got up to 15. So we're more than passing everything for results in that sense. I'll be passing on bottles tomorrow again to do the second round of this 20 samples. I did wind up taking 21 just in case somebody didn't send it in. You would have been my 22nd if I needed another one. But so we've had good participation with people getting the samples taken and getting them back to us. So this next month we'll take another round, and then we'll be done with our corrosion control enforcement case, so that's exciting.
So the one that was off the chart, was that suspect internal piping with
So we-
lead solder?
I did do some investigation. Basically, the reason we kept him as a sample site is because the DNR pushes you to continue using old sample sites. So we kept him, and after the fact, we realized that he uses very, very little water.
Okay.
So he's, in a month, he was using 500 gallons of water.
Oh, jeez.
So, like, this lead comes, what they tell you is that galvanized plumbing, after lead, over time, this galvanized will absorb some lead. So, okay, you get rid of the lead, but some of it's still in your house's galvanized plumbing. So then if you don't flush water through there, that some of that lead is seeping back out of the galvanized into your drinking water. So he uses very little water, so I think that's my theory as to why it came back into it. I did do some investigation samples completely separate from our DNR compliant samples, where I went and rinsed water myself to verify that, we used water to flush the pipes out. I came back the 6 hours later to actually take the physical sample, so I don't have those results back yet, just to see if there's something that he screwed up along the way to get that high number. But then I also, because the DNR guidance, if you do have high lead in your water, is to just run the water for a little while and then drink it. So I took a second investigation sample beyond that as well to say, if you run your water for a minute before drinking your glass of water, this is what your concentration of lead will be at when you're drinking it. So we should have covered our bases with this customer specifically to kind of show him, okay, this is what's actually going on. You just need to use more water. And that's just a function of old plumbing that used to be after limp, was his concern, I believe.
And do we find it's more present in certain areas of town?
I mean, I had results from 0 to 3, and it was all over town, and he was just Old Grove Street, so. I don't know that one per se, but other than that, we received the hydrant buddy that we talked about in the last month's meeting. We are way behind on flushing. We sent that schedule out in May to try to finish flushing, but it has been hectic for us, so being short-staffed among everything else. We'll try to complete flushing here in the next few weeks if we can.
You need me to drive around and open up hydrant? Use the new Milwaukee.
Yeah, there you go, you can try it out. So I hope we haven't gotten complaints for chlorine or anything to say that, hey, the water's been really bad, because it is getting. I would not be surprised if they said it was stale. Yeah, so we will be working at that to try to get that called out. Staub is more or less done at the wastewater plant. The painters said that they were done. Really, the items that you saw on that list, other than the HVAC stuff that we talked about from the last change order, everything's done. Grass is in, it's starting to grow, driveway's in. We did have a contractor back up and gouge our brand new driveway pretty aggressively with a beaver tail on a 40-foot gooseneck. So Farner came today to try to repair it with an infrared patch, but it's kind of it's a horse apiece with those. Either you live with the 5 inch deep gouges in your brand new driveway, or you have a giant patch in your brand new driveway. So we tried that at least. We had the North Clarifier offline for a period of time, and in bringing it back online, one of the RAS pumps had a seal failure. So Flight came to take it to their shop and repair it under warranty. So that hopefully that gets back soon. We will have to ask them, is there a certain procedure for taking these pumps online and offline that we're not aware of that could have made this seal fail? But we'll check in with that. Aqualis was in town. I'm sure you've seen them because they were here for quite a while. They cleaned and televised roughly 10,000 feet of mainline sewer. They also televised all private sewer laterals on East Oak Grove Street ahead of our coming construction. Just figured that's a good place to start in case any laterals needed work as well. They also cleaned 2 of our lift stations.
Did they find any issues, or?
I stopped by them almost every day and asked if they found anything interesting, and there was very little. So that's kind of discouraging when we're cleaning and televising $20,000+ worth of sewers worth of work, and we're not finding leaks, and we're still seeing these 20+% infiltration numbers. So it's hard in our position because we're looking. I don't know where it's coming from, and I hate that, and I hate that we got to sit in these meetings and say, well, where's 25% coming from? And I don't have an answer for you. They're not. We can sift through all the footage, but they're not finding anything major. So.
And East Oak Grove Street is one of the oldest sections of town there too. You know, those are all 100-year-old plus homes with original clay sewer laterals inside the property line. We updated them all when we redid did East Oak Grove Street in the early nineties, we ran all up to the property line, so public side is good, but
Yeah.
I
And it-
agree with Alex, it's hard to swallow that they're not finding anything on the private side.
Basically, the long and the short of it was, you know, some of the joints between new and old, they found some roots here and there, but it wasn't, there was no major leaks or evidence of leaks, so it's a little bit discouraging. And we're at, you know, 3 or 4 years of being pretty heavy on inspection to not find anything major. So, all I can say is we're trying, and I hate to sit in these meetings and see that, but it's all we can do for that. June 25th, we did hold a meeting with Greg Gunderson of MSA and Joe DeYoung of MSA, which it sounds like kind of mirrored, you and Megan had a similar meeting. So we sat down to talk about all the issues that happened throughout the course of the wastewater treatment plant project with relation specifically to engineering services. I had a 4-page document of bullet points of items that we had concerns over with their performance, that they reviewed and worked over and tried to provide insight as to things that they could do differently or could have done differently or do better. So I mean, it was bullet point format, so that's a lot of items that I kind of blurted out onto paper to show two very high up individuals in MSA that we weren't happy with. So ultimately, that was what prompted the 2 $5,000 credits from MSA for this change order. But whether we decide that that's a saving grace for them or not, it's about me. But we had a long discussion. Other than that, I would say because we do have a deadline coming up where we have to have a facility plan amendment for our disinfection upgrade that is DNR mandated, we do have to get engineering services brought on board. Now, I've been talking with 2 firms already, and there's more than that that have been hounding us. But I think the best course of action is that we would have to hold a special full commission meeting to do interviewing of these engineering services. Just because that's gonna get really long during a normal meeting. So at a minimum, Town and Country Engineering and Applied Technologies engineering firm want to come sometime in August to state what they do. MSA would also like to have a representative, a dog in the fight, more or less, at this meeting. So we'd like to hold a meeting to interview 3 different engineering services to talk about our upcoming project, which we do have to have somebody signed on for by October, probably at the absolute latest.
What's the benefit of having us interview MSA when we know how they already are?
That was more or less just to give them a chance, somebody to answer to. If nothing else, it's a time for Greg Gunderson to show up and answer to all the things that his crew may have done inadequately.
Okay.
So,
Where are the other 2 companies based out of?
Applied Technologies is a Connewauk, or sorry, not Connewauk, like Waukesha, I believe. Town and Country is Madison.
I think that's probably one of the main reasons we always stuck with MSA, because they were somewhat local. Though your caliber of project, it wasn't, you know, you're bringing in people from all
They
over
were
the
all-
state.
Our guys were all coming out of Baraboo.
But that's what I say, you know, on the city level, I always argue with them, I said, who are you gonna get any better without paying traveling time every time you turn around? I mean, we just did a a study out in the Wild Goose Park with the high water levels out there. Didn't get a whole lot of answers, got a big fat bill, and haven't heard anything real positive from them either. So like I said, it's always, they always said that an engineer is like a family doctor. You take trust in who you doctor with, and then you just kind of go with that and what have you. And that's probably one of the main reasons we stuck with MSA. We did have a personal touch when we did have an engineer that lived right here in town. I know we didn't get paid or didn't get charged for a lot of the meetings that he attended, just because that's the way he was. He was concerned about his hometown, and he was just a devoted, good public citizen. And this is hard to swallow this now, and when we have an offspring that's charging us travel time from Fox Lake and what have you. And like I said, they've just come up short so many times. I hate to keep harping on it, but like I said, I don't like it when she sits here and throws this stuff and then throws $5,000 credits and think that we're supposed to be all happy with that, because there's probably about another 15 that was hidden someplace that, that we paid for. So just touching bases on that. I'm all in favor but I'm doubtful that we'll really find anybody that'll give us any more bang for the buck. But
Right.
but at least to make them take notice that, hey, we're looking around. We're not necessarily happy with your
Right.
services. I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah,
To answer your
keep
question, Lori.
them on their toes, yeah.
Yep.
Troy and I did visit a class to learn about UV disinfection, to kind of go along with that, know about our upcoming project. Just seeing the different products that are out there and kind of get an idea for what would be most fitting for our application. So, Sensient has been asking when we can set them free with their new limits due to the completion of the wastewater treatment plant project. And I don't have a copy of the contract with me, but it didn't say when it was actually valid. It just said
After completion of the, yeah.
of the project, which I think we're more or less there. So Sensient has asked for a formal letter stating these are your new limits. So, barring any objection, I was gonna send them that they are bound to their new contractual limits.
Have their limits changed much from the old contract?
They paid for,
They're starting to creep up on usage,
yeah, their gallons have definitely gone higher.
yeah, or floors.
So yeah, we'll have to meet to talk about changes in, if anything changes with billing or
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Well, phosphorus has always been a problem. Does that continue to be a problem? Do they still continue to give you upsets? Be honest with us here.
Yeah, I mean, the part about it is, they paid for certain levels, so, they're $3 or $4 million into this project, so we gotta let them do what they can do, so.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much time that they can let loose and do what they paid for, so.
And you're ready for it.
As ready as we're gonna be. We'll see. We'll see what they do, I don't know. We might have to switch some levers and make some changes, but.
Are you comfortable with the overall system out there?
Yeah, we're getting our feet under us here. Part of it's learning how it likes to be ran,
Mm-hmm.
taking tanks online, offline, settings here and there, and it is a learning process. One oddity we ran into was, we talked earlier this year, we had an outbreak of the filamentous bacteria, and that was because we had settings in a poor place for the time of year. Well, now we just got a big load of grease dumped on us, which we're still investigating where it came from, but that goes back to our grease ordinances, that we don't have anything to fight that. But beyond that, the way we have our solids inventory and our different settings, as of right now, we're handling that grease getting dumped on us because we have it sitting in sitting in a place where it can treat it, it can handle it. But, you know, if we were hanging on to way more solids and everything else, and we got that grease dumped on us, we could have a way bigger issue on our hands. So, there's stuff like a grease ordinance where it's still looming in the background, we gotta get this done, cause it's gonna cost us in the long run if we don't. Cause, you know, you could get caught with sitting on your hands, but as of right now, we're doing well. Everything's working really well, and frankly, it's kind of a point of pride if people can get out there and see our clarifiers are making really good water. I mean, just to be able to go up there and look at it and say, I got 6+ feet of visibility going into a wastewater tank. You know, on a sunny day, I can see halfway to the bottom, you know. So it's making a really good product, but it is learning how to do that. So that's kind of cool, just as a wastewater nerd, but. So, we have budgeted for this year to purchase a new pickup truck. I've asked 10 different people and I've gotten 10 different answers. How would the city or commission like me to pursue purchasing said truck? The money is already budgeted. Do you want to see a proposal and approve a proposal, or do I pick something out within the budget and just buy it? Do we need 3 quotes? Does it need to be bid? Like I said, I've asked 10 different people and got 10 different answers.
When Nick bought the last truck, I think he came to us to.
Right, but he bought it in October when the money was budgeted for January.
But it was still budgeted, as long as it's budgeted, I think that.
If it's within the budget, I
If
can
it's
just
within the budget,
pick
I
it
don't know
out.
if you have to do anything.
Do you need a truck?
Yeah, I need at least one truck.
Which one would be retired?
Well, both of the half-ton service bodies are bad. I mean, they're limping along. In my opinion, at a minimum, we need something that's four-wheel drive that can actually pull something, which we have nothing for those things right now. But basically, we gotta get. What I would like to get is more or less exactly the truck Nick just bought. So. But the hard part now is because we've been so busy the first half of the year, you can't go and just order one because it takes a year to get it. So you're gonna buy something off the lot. These dealerships, you know, they claim to offer government pricing, so I'm assuming that that's kind of already a bid item.
I know.
Were those steel utility ready?
I think makes it.
Is yours steel or fiberglass?
Ours were fiberglass,
Yeah.
but on a half-ton, that was a very poor decision. The truck's overweight before you put any tools in it.
Fiberglass?
Cause you would think that steel would be.
Well, that's what they wanted. Trouble is, outfitting those trucks costs as much as the truck.
I
mean,
The money I have budgeted, there's still a truck sitting on a lot right now within that dollar amount that I could just go buy. It just comes down to if you're okay with me just going and buying a truck.
I guess it's been budgeted, I don't really see an issue.
Cause you don't come to them when, like, anything
Any
else is
other,
on the budget.
right,
If
I
it's a
spent
budget item,
$20,000 worth of Qualis and that wasn't,
Right.
you know. I just kind of
I mean,
wanna,
if you know what you're looking for and you
Consensus.
know where one is, I mean, and it's within your budget.
right.
I
It's
mean,
just
I
a
don't know,
bigger dollar figure.
I don't
wanna
know,
sign
I
on
mean,
the
I
dotted
know,
line.
I mean, the only two dealers that I know of that really carry utility bodies are Badger and Lynch. There might be somebody else that
Right.
has an odd one here or there, but those are.
Ewald has a full
Ewald
fleet of trucks
does
with,
some-
Yeah,
with
we've
bodies
got
right
one.
on,
I
right
think
in
that's
their
where one of
lot.
ours came
you know,
from.
Well,
they're hard
even the
trucks.
guy up here in
Summit.
Napoleon or
does
whatever,
some-
he's been carrying more of those
Yeah.
bigger trucks too, so.
Right.
So it seems
So
like
we
more
can-
dealers are carrying
Yeah.
those than they used to, but,
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly shop around.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys wanna see 3 quotes or be involved in the process.
I know when I think when Nick bought the trash truck, he wanted to Ewald, because
Yeah.
they had,
That one
they had.
was on the lot too.
That was on the lot, they had exactly what he wanted and the price was right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, if you think the price is right and it's exactly what you want, I don't really foresee an issue with that.
As long as you do your due diligence, I think then it should be good to go.
Okay. So, at least I brought it up.
Obviously, I mean, I don't know, I don't think it pays to order, I mean, I would look for something
There's-
on the lot. I think you're almost gonna get a better deal if you buy something off the lot.
There's a cabin chassis at Ewald, Hartford for less money, but
Yeah, you gotta buy a body.
you gotta buy a body. and I
Yeah,
don't-
you're better off
I
buying,
don't
I
have
think
a-
at this point, you're better looking for one with the body already
I
on
don't have
it.
a quote for what a body and outfitting would cost, so
You're better off just finding one with the
I
body.
will do that diligence to make sure it adds up.
What year are those two?
Oh, no.
Would that be all
Yeah, and then,
right? Seems like yesterday I was chasing them around trying to find something.
yeah, so more or less, we have a plan for upcoming budgets. Was it every other year for the next 2 trucks? Was it every year?
I think we have one for next year. I think we're
It was
doing,
This year and next year,
right,
and
and
then there was a
then I
little
think
bit
it was
of a
2
gap
years after that.
for
was
the
that
third.
one.
So we're trying to spread it out, at least try to, instead of having 2 trucks of the same year. To hopefully plan better for the future, but. The house that burnt down North Main Street. Did the city have any input on their course of action for rebuilding?
It's not going to be, we give him a raise order,
Okay,
and he's complying.
so.
He just needed an extended time to get an excavator in there.
Right, that being said, is there ever a possibility to rebuild on that lot?
I would say no, because it's so non-conforming there that it's so narrow.
So, the reason I ask is because utilities need to be abandoned.
Yep.
Now, that being said, that's a state highway on a concrete road.
And those should be updated to today's standard out to the boulevard, so.
I mean, they are
I think we.
in year 2000, yes.
I think we could effectively cap them in the boulevard.
Right, so I was gonna, that's an option.
Yep.
So one option, what I was initially leaning towards is that you can do a cure-in-place liner in the main in the street for the sewer. And you don't have to dig any holes for sewer. Qualls will just come and set it in and it puts a plug over the hole. They could come back later and cut that out if somebody wants to use it again. That would only be $4,000. Then nobody has to dig a giant hole in the middle of the street.
Right.
But like you said, if there's ever a chance that something gets built there again, you're gonna want the stubs there.
I think as long as we could effectively cap them in the boulevard, in the terrace area, and make him required to do that.
Right.
So it wouldn't be any cost to us, because by rights, he's abandoning the property, he's required to abandon those utilities. The only thing we changed recently was we made him go all the way out to the main with it. But now, since it's vintage, or if it's today's vintage materials that could be properly capped in the terrace area, I think we can allow him to do that. I don't think we're breaking the rules, I think we're just following up and changing the rules to avoid those kind of things, like opening it up to the main and the state highway.
I mean,
waste get
I
worse.
agree with the logic. I think just with the way the ordinances read and with some of the ones we have enforced in the past,
Yep.
it's kind of a murky thing to allow them not to go to the main.
Well, I think the big
But-
thing was leaking infiltration on laterals,
Sure.
you know, of old
Correct.
vintage laterals and
Right.
stuff like that. Where
I
here,
just-
if we're, I mean, you've televised that section. If you can televise that section and say, hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that lateral that's gonna impair the future for infiltration or anything into our sewer system or leakage on our water system, I think we can effectively abandon it in the terrace there. Not that I ever see it ever being used, but I'm just thinking we put too much on this guy. I don't know what he got for an insurance check or whatever, but we have, if he's gotta get a state permit to open up a state highway and everything, that's
Parking
gonna be
lane would
an
be-
absorbent amount of money.
Yeah.
Unless you feel more comfortable about tagging on the $4,000 to do that kind of abandonment to the, he won't be able to open up that street for $4,000.
Well, it's kind of, I don't know, I guess I'd feel more comfortable against leaks per se with the cure in place patch liner in the main. And then there's no, okay, you know, the cap broke or was installed wrong, and they could still, down the road, if somebody wants to use that again, you just send a robot down the main, they cut it open again.
Why didn't they?
And that kind of fulfills the abandon at the main requirement.
If we had an old cast iron or clay lateral off the main, I'd say, hey, it's gotta be opened up or whatever, band it and cap. But, I mean, this kind of thing don't bother me so much, you
Right.
know, like, but if you feel better about doing it
So-
that way, put that stipulation and we'll put that in as requirement.
The water, that water main is on the close side of the road, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
So he would only be in the parking lane.
Yep.
Dug that to the main. But yeah, if you dig to the main, you're effectively, it's gone.
Yeah.
So
Our ordinance right now says if he walks away from that piece of property, he has to abandon it to the main, but we've kind of wavered on, I think, I don't know if we rewrote it, we decided it here,
We
as long as
did, yeah.
it was today's approved
As long as it
materials,
was-
you know,
it
we would
could be
allow it to be.
reused, but
Right.
That, there was a intent of reuse
Yep.
stipulation.
Like the burnt out duplex.
Right. Had
That's
to be
what-
within a certain time period. So, that's more, the reason I ask is because contractors are calling me for specifics as to how to bid it. So we kinda have to have this is what we're doing.
I think that's a fair way to go, and wasn't aware of that option that you were offering up, and in that case, there's no way that you can do that for $4,000.
Well, if the sewer runs with the water, it'd be the same hole. If you do it in the boulevard,
He's gotta restore that road though.
well, if you do it on the side, under the sidewalk,
I'm talking about full abandonment out to the main.
if you did it that way, then yeah, that would be,
$4,000 wouldn't go very
no,
far.
$4,000 won't touch the concrete. So, beyond that, we, hired Brian Busan, or Bussin, I don't know how to say it particularly. His start date will be tomorrow, so. He doesn't have a lot, really any utility-specific experience, so it's a little bit green, but, hopefully it's the right background otherwise to be able to train and get on board. So, we'll get him out, learning, and hopefully he can be useful and helpful, especially in Flushing. Try to get that caught up. And, go from there.
What drew you to him, or what drew him to this line of work?
He actually was surprisingly interested in wastewater as opposed to water, which most new candidates, especially with no experience, don't like the idea of being dirty. But he liked the science behind it and kind of how intricate and involved, everything can be, how it all works together, so. Kind of a problem solver, it sounds like, so.
Younger?
I can't say that.
Family man or whatever.
Yeah.
He's very mechanically inclined.
Yeah, sounds like so.
I think he-
Hopefully it,
According to his resume, he's quite, he's been writing repair manuals,
so,
so I mean,
very well spoken,
Good.
mechanically inclined.
so he should be a good fit.
Yeah. That's all I got for today. I'll see you again to talk about wages and engineers.
Yeah, okay.
So.
All right. Anybody have anything they want to ask Alex? If not, I have I got this in the mail this week. The annual meeting for WPPI will be held the 16th, 17th, and 18th of September in Green Bay. The 16th is the golf tournament, and then the welcome, and then the 17th is the annual meeting program. Then during that, they will give tours of Lambeau Field, and the actual meeting will be taking place at Lambeau Field, or on the 16th as well. They're giving tours. So if any of you would like to come, you are free to do so. The board of directors meets on the 18th in the morning. So if you would like to attend, get your information to Lori, and so she can order rooms. Well, 4.
You stack them.
Yeah. The hotel is the Oneida Hotel. So, that's all I have. Mr. Mayor.
I said enough today. Frustration on everything.
Okay, is there any old business? Any new business? If not,
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
okay, motion by Bart, second by Doug to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried at 8:12.